Katheryn Winnick, you play the fierce shield maiden Lagertha on History Channel's hit show Vikings. Vikings is such a huge hit at the moment on History. How has the success of that show impacted your life so far?
Oh, Rob, good question. Well, I just got into Ireland, and people have actually seen it here, which is kind of odd because they're usually a year behind or a couple years behind. So it's a little odd coming into the airport and people are like, "Hey, you're the Shield Maiden girl." But it's overwhelming and very positive. It's amazing to see so many fans that actually identify with Lagertha's character and the fact that she's not only Shield Maiden, but she's a young mom and a wife, but now divorcee times two. She killed her second husband and now has come into her own in the second season. So it's been overwhelming, and I'm so grateful just to have people respond to her character because I fell in love with her when I was working on her, and I'm so happy that other people feel the same way.
Yeah, let's jump to Lagertha's journey over season two, because you've been given some very rich stuff to do by the showrunners, by Michael Hurst and by the crew. Lagertha, she divorces Ragnar because she feels betrayed. She goes off and she's with a very abusive second husband who she then offs, and then she comes back as the Earl, right? So you really got to, yeah, off with he's gone, and then she comes back as an Earl. So you've really got a great arc that you worked with over season two. Tell us what your highlight from the season two would be for your character.
The highlight, I think, for Lagertha in season two would be really coming into her own. End of season one, she is left with dealing with Kattegat in her town and responsibilities of losing half the town for a plague and dealing with a miscarriage, not only the loss of her daughter, but also a sense of who she is as a woman when she can't produce any more sons for Ragnar, and the fact that he's cheated on her and another woman shows up with a swollen belly. That's challenging for her, and I think she has a lot of pride. And then she gets into an abusive relationship, so that's actually, truthfully, I had a hard time with that. I kept calling Michael Hurst, who's the creator, and I'm like, why are you putting me in this situation that she would be in an abusive relationship? And if anything, it was such a gift because it allowed me to craft something that would allow me to drop that low. I think it also, a lot of people identify with the character that she's human. She's not superhero. She's a shield maiden and strong, but she's also a woman who can be in relationships that don't work. I think every one of us have been in that situation that something isn't right with another partner, and she found herself in that situation. How does she get out of it? Luckily for her, she ends up making the right choice and killing him or stabbing him in the eye, and she comes into her own and becomes Ragnar's equal and an ally and becomes an earl and helps save his ass.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun to play because I have a big journey this season. I think if anything, I probably have one of the biggest out of all the characters because Michael puts me through the ringer in so many different areas of conflict, and I get a chance to deal with that. I hit a low. I hit an abusive relationship, but then I ended up learning more about myself. And I think the old saying is true: "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." And I think that sums up Lagertha's character in season two.
Absolutely. You actually took the words out of my mouth, because in my notes I've written, geez, Michael Hurst has really put her through the ringer this season, and that is certainly the case. And that's a gift for an actor like you, to be given all kinds of things to play and explore. And one of the aspects that I truly admire about the show and about the Viking legend itself is their attitude towards women. And women were rulers. They had freedom to divorce. They fought alongside the men. It was a very democratic society, And I'm wondering how much of that aspect about this, the strength of women, how much of that aspect do you want to honor when you're playing Lagertha on the show?
It's a very good question. When I started doing my research on the character, originally they hired me, and it was history's first show, and they told me that it was a male demographic show, and I'm just the wifey. And I remember thinking, I'm like, I'm not sure if I can deal with that. But then when I started to learn about Lagertha's character, I really feel that it had an opportunity to show women in that time period in the 8th century, and women were celebrated. They were very strong. They were not only wives but also mothers and shield maidens, and protected their home, and were able to own land and divorce their husbands and rule. And that's what was so amazing about women in that time period. And I think Lagertha is a great example of that. And if anything, I would say that she's a modern woman for her time. And I think that's what makes her character so interesting. And I think that's why a lot of people identify with her. She is the yes, she's the working woman in the dark ages. She does everything. She's not only a woman who fights in the shield wall and pillages and brings back wealth, but she's also a mother and a wife. And in this time period, a lot of women have to multitask in order to make those ends meet, and to make everything balanced. And I think that's what people identify with her
Yeah.
on. So,
I think you're totally right, and that's the that brings me to this. Generally, there's not a lot written about the Vikings, but what we do know about them, and this is something that's come out of an interview that I had with Michael last year. I had the pleasure of interviewing your creator and showrunner. He's such a smart guy. He's done so much great work on television and film, and he says that the Vikings are really advanced. You know, they're actually very modern, and we relate to them not only because they're cool and they're barbarians and they kill people and they're strong, but they're also very advanced and sophisticated. But there isn't a lot written about them because they didn't really write much. So that brings me to this: how do you, as an actress on the show, prepare for this type of role? Did you do much research, or were you guided by other people, by Michael himself? How does that work?
it's a great question. I think it was a tricky thing to play Lagertha because she is a shield maiden and very strong physically, and I think that it could have been very comic booky if it wasn't played right. And I think that's what Michael Hurst has done a great job by fleshing out the characters and the vulnerability of her and who she is as a woman, and that I got a chance to play. But I come from a martial art background. I'm a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo, second degree in karate, and my first love and my first business was being not only a martial artist but also running martial arts schools and teaching young women how to defend themselves. And I was working on my degree in kinesiology at York University at the same time, and trying to get educated, but also running 3 schools in Toronto at the age of 21. And for me, I think that when I was understanding Lagertha and the fact that she was born a shield maiden and this is in her nature, the sense of strong will really resonated with me, and of who she is, that even though that she's in the battlefield fighting for her life, also she's just as strong-willed in her personal life, and how she deals with Ragnar, and how she deals with a sense of self, and how she deals with conflict, and dealing with men that are hitting on her, and dealing with her son. And that strong will is what I think is the core of who she is. And I'm so grateful that my parents got me involved in martial arts at a young age, because what it gave me is not only a strong work ethic and how to work hard for something that you want to achieve, but it also gave me perseverance, and to be able to fight for something, and no one's going to give you anything, and you need to really, if you really believe in something, you need to find your own strength to be able to achieve those things. And that is one thing that I'm very grateful for, and I think every young woman and every person should have that experience to be able to reach their own personal goals for that. And I think that I was able to bring my first love, which is the love of martial arts, into my craft of acting. And I'm kind of grateful that I've had 2 different careers.
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
I think you really hit onto something there because the female empowerment angle of the show is definitely a highlight. It's why Lagertha is such a fan favorite. And I knew all about your martial arts background, and I wondered if, given that because of your background, you're not afraid to kind of get yourself a bit physical. Do you get involved in the physical aspects of this show? Because it is a very physically demanding role. It must be. Do you do much of the stunt work yourself?
I do all my stunt work. I
Fantastic.
refuse
Tell us about that.
Well, I won't have a stunt double. I'm not sure anybody can do it as authentically as me, and I'm just maybe it's just me being very stubborn, or if it's just me really wanting to embody the character and embodying Lagertha. I feel that it's important for me to be involved in every single shot, even if I'm in the distance amongst 400 stuntmen or extras and background actors. I want to be there. I don't want anybody else standing in my place, even if I'm a small part of the screen. And I think that helps me because I just got to Ireland yesterday. I'm completely jet lagged. I just flew in to shoot season 3, so I'm in my hotel room, and we're about to start season 3. And you don't when you're on this show and when you're on this particular show, there is no breaks. Once you're in the costumes, you're out in the mountains in Ireland, you're shooting in the middle of nowhere. We don't really have trailers. We're shooting in the mountains. It takes 45 minutes just to get to them because they're in the only landing area and the only common or more stable ground. So once we're out on location, we're there for a good 14, 15 hours and dealing with the Irish elements of the rain and sometimes hail and immediate showers, and you embrace that. And if anything, that has helped me get into character more, because this is how the Vikings would have lived. They're dealing with the leathers and the costumes and chainmail and the horses and the elements and the mud and the dirt. And I don't remember the last time I saw a mirror, which was so great. It's the difference of when you're shooting a TV show for cable in Ireland, or this show versus a network show, and I love that. I actually prefer that. I prefer that, where you are versus just shooting a scene. They just capture the being of it, if that makes sense.
It totally does. It sounds very immersive and really rewarding. Now I'm going to take a different tack because I've got quite a few people in the chat room who are desperate to ask you some questions. Now, this is a funny one from Mia1995. She wants you to tell us the funniest thing that's happened on set so far, if you can divulge something that is just so ridiculous, especially given that you're all so serious on the show. Is there any levity on the set?
Of course. I know it's such a serious role, but we actually have a lot of fun. I just came back from having dinner with Floki and Helga and the other queen, and we have a really good time with everybody on set. It's just everybody really gets along. We're in Ireland for 6 months. This is our family. I don't get a chance to go home. I'm originally from Toronto, Canada, and I live in LA, so it's not like I can go home for the weekend. So you're here for half the year, so it's important to establish a strong community. And I don't know, we just we know how to have fun. We know how to laugh, and we let's see, the funniest thing, I think last season in the battle sequences where we had the big intense scenes, we ended up having this huge mud fight. Like, I'm telling you, like, it was pouring, where I was covered in mud, and I had to get Travis because he's such a prankster. So I ended up creating the biggest mud ball, and truthfully, I actually loaded it with horse poo.
Even better.
Oh, I just got that because he got me so many times. So I ended up getting all of the extras to gang up on him and gave him one good massive mud ball. And I think he's still I think if anything, he probably respected my character more.
Well, this is coming from very aptly named Ragnar Lothbrok. He wants to know, are we going to see any new love interest for Lagertha in season 3, or is Ragnar the one for her?
Ooh, very good question. I just read the new script last night. Like I said, I'm probably jet lagged, so I had to read it. It's quickly flip through it this morning. We start shooting in like 5, 6 days. Um, there is interest. I think Lagertha is interested, and I think that Ragnar is also in the picture. And I guess you will have to wait and see. Is that okay?
Okay, very good.
Okay.
That's very good. I know you can't say too much because then you'll get, they'll be like, you're now written off the show. So you got to be careful. You got to. Now, Michelle Soares, I hope I said that name properly. Michelle Soares wants to know, what do you like most about Lagertha, and what do you like most about her relationship with Ragnar?
Ooh.
It's the two question. It's a multi-question.
I guess what I love about Lagertha is that she's a strong cookie. She's someone who will speak her will and have her say and do what's right for herself and her family and stick up for what she believes in. And I admire that. And the second part of the question was, what do I like most about Ragnar?
And the relationship between them, because you guys have such an amazing chemistry. Look, let's be honest, you and Travis obviously have hit it off on screen. What do you love about that relationship between the two characters?
I think it's a mutual respect. If anything, they're equals. And I remember when I got screen tested with this character, they actually flew me to Los Angeles to meet with Travis. Travis got casted probably a week before me, and they wanted a chemistry read with me and him. And I'm like, I called up my agents. I'm like, what does that mean? And they're like, well, we just want to see if you have chemistry. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
So we had this scene where I'm lying in bed with him, and I asked him if I tell him that I want to ride him like a bull, and it's written as that I want to ride him like a bull, like a wild bull, which are my lines, which is so awkward to say. I remember I was in the MGM office, and all the executives in suits were like lined up, and I'm like, okay, they want chemistry. Screw it. So I like grabbed the back of his neck and I just laid one on him and totally gave him a big fat smooch. And if they wanted chemistry, I think they probably got it. And I don't know. It just is. If anything, Lagertha and Ragnar have a mutual respect for one another because they're both fighters and they come from the same background, and that they're both farmers and they grew up together. So I think that relationship is indestructible. If anything, it can't be replaced, no matter who he's with. And I know Lagertha, Ragnar is her true love. So I'm curious what season 3 will bring.
Yeah. Speaking of season 3, I know that you don't know everything yet, but Elio Antonucci would like to know whether you'll have more of a leading role on the show. Do you think Lagertha will lead her people in both War and Peace? Do you know that you're going to have more of a leading role on the show, or is it going to be like it was in season 1 and 2?
I have no idea. I'll be honest with you. They're being so tight-lipped about the season 3.
As they should.
It's really interesting to see the process a little different this year. Maybe because it's become such a big hit and a worldwide hit that they're just being more secretive. So I have no idea what Michael has in store for me. But he did tell me one thing. We were at the Emmy panel in Los Angeles, and he whispered in my ear. He goes, "Get ready." And I love that, and that's all I want to hear. And if I got put through the ringer last year, I can't wait for this year.
Wow, that is so exciting. Speaking of the Emmy panel, I wanted to ask you about that because Tom O'Neill, who runs Gold Derby, this is his baby. He moderated it for History Channel. It was a great event. Apparently, you guys had a ball, and there were a lot of Emmy voters there watching you guys. Tell us about that experience.
It was a very interesting experience because last year was different than this year, in the sense where you're going out there and it's so many people have seen the show now, and it's turned into this weird kind of buzz. And these are not only your peers that they're Emmy voters, but they're also fans.
Yeah.
So it was amazing to be hanging out with them till I think we were supposed to leave at 10 o'clock at night, but I think we stayed till almost 1 in the morning. We just stayed and hanging out and chatting and talking about the different camera techniques and the different character development, and it's so great to have those creative conversations with people that truly care about the arts. And I think, this is a show that a lot of people may right now probably hear about it, and I really hope people catch on. If anything, they are now. And what they say about Hollywood is true. They're usually a year behind everybody else. And it's been such a big jump in the last year. Just everybody's just, I can't go to New York without getting noticed now, and even coming to Ireland now, and just traveling to Canada. So just at local restaurants or a Starbucks. So it's pretty surreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Emmys are sometimes late to certain shows. Last year, Vikings was nominated in 3 creative arts categories, and I'm sure it'll receive even more this year. But if some of you guys are nominated as actors, I know you've been asked this before, probably Tom even asked you the question, you have got to think about your highlight episode of the season, because that's what you submit. Have you got a highlight episode in particular that you think really shows your range as this character?
Oh gosh, I think Tom asked me that in the Emmy panel. I think it's a hard question to answer because Lagertha has not one episode. It's really an arc.
Yeah.
And maybe it's when she killed her husband, or maybe when she comes back as an earl, or maybe it's her journey back and saving Ragnar's ass and dealing with her army of people and dealing with Kattegat, and also fighting the shield wall. It's hard for me to answer that because I don't think it's one. I think it's a combination. I probably need to see it again, and truthfully, I only get to see it when everybody else sees it. So I need to probably rewatch it because I don't get them in early advance as some people do.
Yeah, that's fair enough, and that's a pretty good answer, I think. I mean, it's very difficult to choose. It's like a Sophie's choice.
Wow.
Thank you, Katheryn, so much for your time today. The fans are going crazy in the chat room, and this show has just really hit its stride. You do a great job as Lagertha, and we so much look forward to season 3, and good luck at this year's awards season.
Thank you, and I want to thank everybody out there, and I'm so grateful for all your support and all your love, and thank you so much for everything, and because, okay.
Perfect.